Welcome, Crowfallers. All right, today we're just going to have a very short segment with me on kind of an updated environment and the direction this is all going. So this is going to be all new stuff. A lot of this is going to be kind of some stuff you've seen in the from the video, but it's all new in terms of actually being created in the parcel. So, and this is the new beachhead actually, right here. And those familiar that have played the test, we had this huge beachhead where you would spawn into a temple like this, and then you would just have this kind of giant scene to just go run around in. And we had areas where you could get pack pigs and get leather and then a bunch of resources just stringing around, and then you would just go outside the gates and into the actual campaign. So the difference is right off the bat is the scale. We've changed the scale of this from this size, which was this size, down to this size. So it's much smaller, a lot more compact, and a lot easier to kind of navigate now. It's nowhere near as vast. It's still pretty big, but it's nowhere near as big as it was before, and that was kind of some good feedback we got. But let's get right to it. So some of the really cool, interesting things that you're going to start seeing here pretty soon when we release this new, I guess you could say this is part of that whole graphical upgrade. I've had some people message me and comment to me, well, where is it? You know, so we released this video a couple months ago showing the new direction and kind of the graphical upgrade that we just kind of had in that video. Well, we haven't added any of it into any of the tests. No one's seen any of that stuff, which is really cool because it's on the way. And this is that stuff. You're seeing a lot of new ground vegetation, all new types of trees, all new types of rock formations that we're going to be putting into the scene, just to kind of add that variety when you're walking around. And on top of that, we've got some really cool shaders to work with. So we've got a new environment shader and a new a terrain shader, which allows me to do a bunch of really nifty stuff. And one of those things I can show you right off the bat, like for example, let's just kind of fly over here real quickly. One of the cool things that we're going to be able to do is something called triplanar mapping. And for those that don't understand that that term, that allows me to texture map something on a terrain that looks like you would normally do in a prop. So if you take a prop like this over here, this tower, and how that rock looks, we've texture mapped that. We've UV mapped that to be in a certain scale of, say, like a 1-to-1. So when you see it in the game, that's what it looks like. Well, unfortunately, with terrain systems, you don't always get the same. I can't go in here and just UV map everything to look a certain way. So what you end up having is, I can show you what it looks like without this terrain shader. This is what it would look like without it. That's Unity standard right there. That's the default. And it looks really poopy. I don't like it. It's real stretchy. It stretches all the textures because what's happening is, as you morph that terrain, as you sculpt the terrain, it stretches those UVs because the UVs are only ever a certain way on the terrain. You can scale the textures in a terrain, but you can't change it in a specific area to look different. And you can kind of see out here off in the distance too, it's very repeated. So watch what happens when I turn the shader back to, it breaks all that up. And it now has triplanar mapping. It looks really good. We like it this way. And another really cool thing is we have what is called far tiling. So as you're looking off in the distance, before you would see it whatever I had it tiled to. So if I had a tile to, let's say, just throwing a number out, 16, it was tiled 16 times. Up close, it may look really good, but from far away, it's going to look really repeated. And so what this allows me to do is I can set a close tiling and a far tiling to be separate, and then blend those as you get closer. So if you look at this area right here, you'll see that it's got some cool information, but as I start to slowly get closer to it, it blends into, you can see it right there. It blends into the texture size that I really want you to see it at, up close. So that's another nifty thing that we get to do that will really help these environments kind of look the way that we want them to look. So, and of course we've got, let's let's fly over here, sorry. I know I'm whipping around real quick. So these are a collection of rocks. These are some of the new rock models that we've made for the environment. With the new terrain shader, environment shader, I should say, which is a little bit separate. It's an object shader. You have what is called the terrain, and then you have objects. Both of them have separate shaders. With the object shader, I now have the ability to do some really neat stuff there as well. We can add moss. So I can take moss on an object. Let's just plop this guy down here into the ground. Kind of just roll him around like that. And then we can have it so it looks like it blends into the environment. And what's really neat is this is all based off a raycast shooting down. So as I rotate this thing, see if I can turn that. As I rotate it, it picks up the moss based off the rotation, which is really awesome. So I don't have to worry about any of that. I can just rotate it until my heart's content and just put it, let's say I wanted the rock to look this way into the ground instead, but still wanted to get that moss on there. Boom. So that's another really nifty thing we can do. And that also implies with snow. We're able to do this with snow as well. That's also in the shader. So I can turn that on. Ooh, get some snow going. And so when the hunger finally comes into the winter season, we'll be able to do all this fun stuff where everything will be full of snow. And that also goes with the terrain itself. The terrain has a snow setting. So we can get snow very quickly. And we'll have a system that drives everything. So instead of me going in here and individually just showing you, we'll have a system that it just dynamically goes all over everything. We'll have already plugged in all the information that we need and to get it to run. So yeah, so let's just run real quick through this, or fly through. We'll just do a quick fly through. And we'll show you what this kind of looks like. I'll go real close up into some details. And I'm going to go full screen on you.
Do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, let's start pumping some questions out. We only got 30 minutes, and now it's gonna go by quick.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pull out too terribly many. How do you think that the new shader is gonna affect performance, if at all?
Well, that's one thing that we're when it comes to performance, which is a really good question, but when it comes to performance, the way this really works, and this is with any game. A lot of times you have your engine, you'll have your base thing that you're going on, and you're making assets and you're making art, and you got coders, they're doing all the lines of code and doing all that stuff that you need, creating systems and whatnot. But you usually get to a certain point in the production where you then switch over to optimization. Well, we have to do this a little differently. Since we're a smaller studio and we're pumping this stuff out to you guys all the time, we kind of have to like do a little and then optimize, do a little and then optimize, which is, it's a little bit slower process. So to kind of answer your question, this will take a hit at first until we get to the until the optimization catches up. There's actually some advantages on some of this stuff that will help performance. For example, in the environment shader with these props, we have an ability to called what is instancing. And so the shader itself has a little check mark on it that if the model shares the exact same model and the exact same textures, you can then instance that. So what ends up happening is I could dupe this model right here, this rock, 100 times, and I'm only paying for the price of one. It basically, you're saving a lot on the draw calls, which is effectively can hit the frame rate. So yeah, we are definitely hitting that all the time, trying to optimize. But right now it's running good. I'm just doing a little fly through, and I'm probably about 60 frames right now. But this is on my beefy computer. So and this is what you're gonna see now with all this new stuff is the verticality and the I guess you could say the silhouetting is gonna change in the environment, which is gonna make things a lot more interesting, as well as adding a bunch of ground vegetation. That was one thing we were missing in all the other stuff is we just had a couple of trees and then we had the terrain. We didn't have any of that stuff in between. And that's what all this stuff's adding. It's going to add that kind of variety, which is really going to kind of make the world a lot more interesting. You'll just come across different type of formations, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to go over here, and there might be some sort of chest or some sort of resources that you want to get. And we'll have these throughout all various types of parcels. So it's going to be a lot of fun to start creating this stuff. I've been always wanting to get to this point where I have the assets now to just start pumping this stuff out and making it look really good. And we're getting real close there. I think we're pretty much there. So we'll be able to do fun stuff like, for example, this thing over here in the swamplands. Sorry, I'm flying fast. Whee! So this is like a little swampland area in the beginning stage where you'll be able to come and beat up on some pack pigs and get their leathers and stuff. But I want to start adding in a lot of this kind of stuff in the environment so that when you're running around, for example, let's just go out here. Let's say this was another parcel and you were rolling up on this. You would know this because it has a kind of defining feature. And you could start, laying down markers around the world saying, hey, meet me by this storm formation or whatever. And yeah, more questions.
Nice. I don't know if you know this one. Is the weather going to be server-based or client-based?
The weather would most likely is going to be driven, well, client-based in terms of rendering, but there will be some aspects that you just won't be able to turn off. Like you're not going to be able to turn off night and day or turn off rain. So if it's raining on your screen and if it was purely client-based, you could find a way to get in there and turn that off and have an advantage over a player. Because what we plan on doing is once the weather hits, we'll probably have, we'll soak up in the fog and we're going to make it real kind of like claustrophobic, especially for nighttime. We want to make it feel like it's a real adventure game. And if you could just turn all that off and not have to worry about that and someone else does, well, that's kind of a huge disadvantage for that other person. So there'll be some things client side that you'll only ever have to worry about rendering size. But for that kind of stuff, no, that's most likely going to be server driven.
Do you know how soon we're going to start seeing some of these changes, like the snow sliders and?
Yeah, so good question. So we're trying to shoot for 5.3, I think, is what the updating what we wanted to do. So what I have to first do is go through all the old parcels, and I'll show you some of those old ones and convert them over to this new stuff. And that takes a little bit of time. And then we're going to start pumping out what we call adventuring parcels. But we're hoping for a 5.3 kind of look, which is a month or so from now, I think is what we're on track for. That would be nice. I'd love to get this all into you guys now if I could. But, there's a step that we have to do to make sure you guys, it's like it runs. But yeah, so very, very soon.
I see some fancy trees in there that look like, like birch trees and stuff like that. Are all the knotwood trees going to look similar and all the different types of...
So yeah, another good question actually, and I can show you real quick. So to get around the system that we kind of created, which was we wanted birch, I think it was yew, I think it's oak. So we wanted these to be specifically that you kind of mine for to get harvest, to get a certain type of resource. But then there's knotwood, which is just kind of our shitwood, the shitwood that just is used for a lot of things, but it's not very special. The problem with that is it was only like one type of tree, and I mean that's not very interesting, and I couldn't just flood the environment with a bunch of oaks, a bunch of this, because then that screws up the whole harvesting thing. So I talked to Todd about this, and what we end up doing is, and I'll just come over here and just kind of show you guys, I end up just spending the time and making a bunch of new trees that are considered knotwood family. So these are all the same, they're gonna all give you the same type of resource. And then I'll show you the new updated oak, yew, that type of tree. And so they do look different, but let's just do this. All right. So we'll just come in here and we'll just show you a few of the, I won't show you all of them, but I can just kind of quickly, oh, that's the stump. We don't need to see that.
I think I just heard Raymond scream in the other room.
Yeah, he got all excited. So this is our new version of our old knot tree, which it is actually updated. It's quite, you know, I went in, retextured it, made it look much nicer, and you know, we actually have a texture on the trunk. It's not just this jarbled mess. So this is the new basic knotwood tree. But then the other new, I guess, part of the family now is some of these other ones, and we'll just quickly show you some. And these can be, what's great about these guys is they scale very good. So I can make like a huge forest, or we can have a smaller, younger version of these. Again, in the same family. Some of them are using the same textures, just kind of slightly changed. There was that one. Well, there's a bunch of them. I'm just going to show you kind of some of my favorites. And this one I just went in there and, you know, completely changed so that it's a totally looking different type of wood, but it still fits within the knotwood family.
They said you can't call it knotwood anymore. It has to be shitwood now.
Shitwood? Yeah. Todd's he's gonna love me for that one. Sorry, Todd. So, well, you get the picture. So these are, you know, and there's probably a half dozen more, and because then we have a lot ground trees that are much smaller that are only used for, well, here, I'll just show you real quick so we're all on the same page. So there's a much smaller tree, and this is only ever used for kind of this height and scale. And now we have the new ones, the new versions of the old ones, this is the new version of the yew tree, which is this kind of cool, wicked looking, old, yewy looking tree. Because I went back and started doing the real research that I needed to, and they're very stringy and they have theyese long arms, and they're really, really cool looking, the old ones. And let's see, I think there's a new oak as well. Find that. So you will still roll up on these guys, but these are resource trees, and you'll just kind of have to start. You know, you'll get to know the difference between this, and then these guys. I mean, it's just a matter of repetition. You'll just repeatedly do it so much that you'll see the silhouette and go, oh, that's an oak, that's this, that's that. So yeah, that kind of answers that question. I'll show one more here. Let's do the ash tree. I always like this one. It's kind of a tall, fun tree. I sound like Bob Ross, don't I? Happy little tree.
Happy little tree.
It's a fun Crowfall Ross. All right, so yeah. So now I'll show you just a quick environment of one of the ideas for what we mean by adventuring parcels. So this is a beachhead, and this is a player starting zone. And so it's pretty big for, I would say, just a one parcel area. This almost looks like a collection of cells to make up a parcel. But it's not, it's just one zone. And then we have other zones that you've seen, like towns and villages, those parcels, those are for player building. Well, this is gonna be something a little different. This is gonna be what we are calling adventure parcels. And so they're gonna be a little bit smaller, but you'll be able to build them in a way so that you get this like adventuring zone. So you could have like a village that you need to go to create or to finish a task or something. And like this one is it's just a 1x. It's just actually it's into our new scale. So it's just a 4-cell parcel. It's 4 of these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I might have shown something like this off before, but this is the completed state with the rocks and shaders and stuff working. And again, it's designed to be just interesting. It's just supposed to be an interesting area for you to go and explore. And we'll put stuff out there to cause a reason to go out there and fight. There might be a chest in the center or some resources stacked around so that when you roll up on it, there might be someone already here trying to get it. And you're just like, you know what? No, not today. Not today, not on my watch. And so I'll just kind of play through it real quick and show you guys. Any other questions that people are popping out?
Not yet. There's a couple design questions. But
I know.
That's pretty fun.
That's
I like that rock overhang. That's really cool looking.
Yeah, we'll be able to have a lot of new fun areas that are very much in this vein. What's up?
Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
It was way at the top. Someone had asked about parcel seams.
Parcel seams?
Parcel seams, yeah.
Oh, what about? What was the question?
Transmission between parcels.
What do they look like? Like, are they...
And basically, is the stitching between the parcels any different with this new shader?
With the new shader, from what we've seen the first tests, it's almost the exact same. You really can't tell. There's a few areas where what happens is when you get a terrain that's like this level and you get a terrain that goes up to this height, it wants to stitch this and meet you in the middle, and you end up having that stretching problem. We've kind of have some ideas on how to fix that, and a lot of it has to do just to make sure the terrains are within a threshold of say like 5 meters, so that it's just a little bit more gradual. But as far as we can tell, you wouldn't be able to, like if this was stitched to another terrain right now, you wouldn't be able to tell. So in a nutshell, this is kind of basically what we got going. This is new shaders, new textures, new objects, new terrain assets, and new lighting. The lighting is now in, and then the weather. I mean, I can quickly show you a little bit of that. Which,
yeah, can you show some of the weather? Are we going to see any of these new props in the EKs as well? Are they going to be assets, or are they just going to be existing on the parcels?
Good question. So the question is, I don't know if anyone can hear. They probably can hear him, right?
It probably sounds pretty low, so
yeah.
I don't mind.
So one of the good questions that was just asked was, is stuff like this going to show up in the EK parcels? And the answer to that is a yes and no. What we may end up doing, because some of this stuff is a little bit more intensive, so having this on a player parcel where they can put down 30, 40 houses may not be the best, but you'll have some of this stuff. You'll probably have a lot of this kind of stuff with just little tiny bits and pieces of something like this. But we also might just make a parcel and design it so that you can only have so many houses on it, and it does have some cool terrain features that kind of emulate this. So the question is yes and no. We'll have to go about this in a way so that it doesn't completely wipe out your frame rate when you add a bunch of houses, like for your guild, but we don't want it to be 100% flat. It's such a tough thing to do, because the buildable parcels need to be just that. They need to give you the space to have it so that it's buildable. But at the same time, when it's just 100% flat, it's not very interesting. So it might be a combination where we put some of this stuff in to kind of break that up, and then you can just frame your EKs, those town parcels and village parcels, with interesting parcels like this, so that you got stuff around you. But all right, so yeah, let's quickly look at some of the. Sorry, let me get this. Just kind of look out here.
Are we going to see ambient sound with like the weather and
yes,
things like that?
And another cool thing that we're going to start implementing pretty soon, like birds, butterflies, that kind of stuff, just little to make the environment actually alive. You're going to see actual life, and that's going to add a whole bunch of neat stuff. So here's some cloudiness. Whee! And so right now I'm simulating the day, so it's going to be pretty quick. I think I got it set to 15 minutes. Let's change this to like 3 minutes. So that sun's going to go pretty fast.
They like the idea of ambient creatures.
Yeah, it really will bring, and we've somewhat tested that. It's going to really bring the life to the environment. Sorry, I can never do two things at once. So here's some other clouds. We can do like light rain. So we have some rain coming in, and I can even make the shader change the way the environment looks so things look wet, which is really cool. Let's go back to that. And then there's also like heavy rain.
Nice.
You can do some snow, have some snow come in, and then, but right now I don't have the system set up so that it would actually start to accumulate. So we have to tie all that in together, but we'll be able to do that.
Is it going to rain inside buildings?
And we can even do, no, that's a good question. People,
I know.
no, it won't rain inside buildings. It should be able to it should be able to tell the geometry and not have it rain. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
one of the cool things is we can, with this lighting system, is we can have a trigger box. So we can set up to a parcel to be a, so when you, let's say you walk into this and this is a swamp area, we can have it trigger box so that when you walk in, the lighting changes, the mood changes, it gets super foggy, and then the whole environment just looks totally different. And then when you leave that environment, it kind of goes away. I love that. I love when games do that kind of stuff. So it's almost atmospheric to the location, which is really nice. So.
Do you have a, is night ready to show off?
Nighttime, we're still working on nighttime. I mean, I can show you real quickly. It's just we're running into some issues with nighttime. And I don't mind showing stuff that's not very much what we would like to show off. I mean, that's why we're just transparent that way. But right now we have it so that the trick is this: how dark do we make it? And so that's right now where we're at.
Moon phase.
Yeah, the moon phase. Fucking Gibson. So right now this is pretty bright with the shader. So we have, you can see there's this outline. So we're working that out, how much we would actually show off the environment. But we do have it in. It's there. And we can have the stars move and all that.
Oh, I like the stars.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of how dark do we go? Because traditionally in MMO games, it's really not dark at all. If you actually go back and look at all the MMO games that are out there that have ever been, they don't go really dark. Todd is on the fence on whether or not he wants this to feel like in a survival game at that point where it's really dark and you have to have torches, that kind of thing. Or if we just kind of go more of the traditional where it's just more of a gradual change. It's going to look like nighttime, but you know, you can still see your hands and stuff like that easily as a metaphor.
They're all saying very dark.
Exactly.
Very excited about it to be super dark.
And there's advantages to that, and there's some disadvantages to that. But I kind of like it dark. I kind of would like I would like to see where, you know, you would see a cabin or whatever, and you could see the fire glow, and people would be there, and then you just work your way there, and that's like a point of light. Whereas if it was just kind of generally dark, it really wouldn't, you know, it'd still stand out, but it wouldn't be like a focal point to go in on.
Night vision disciplines.
Is that a real question?
The people were asking.
I have no idea.
That's
a design question.
Will trigger boxes allow for gradual change? Like if somebody gets into a fight near a trigger box, like you were talking about it getting foggy and then not, is that gonna mess with, like, if they're fighting and running in and out of it?
That's interesting. Good question. Yeah, I don't know how that. Well, I mean, you can see. I don't know if it would be, and we probably could basically. It might look a little bit like this. It might be coming in that fast, so you can see how the clouds are changing. But we have a little bit of control of that. We can slow that process down so it's not so quick.
By the way, you got about 5 minutes left.
5 minutes.
Technically about 2 minutes, but.
All right, we got 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Is night gonna affect the draw distance?
Night would definitely affect the draw distance. I mean, we would bring in the fog. You know, right now, let's say this level right now is a little hazy, but let's just do this as a test real quick. Oh, it's nighttime. What did I just do? I changed the latitude. So let me come up here and quickly remove some of this fog because it's a little foggy right now. So let's say this was the distance that you're seeing right now. When it becomes nighttime, or if it becomes in a situation where the fog, we want that to change, it might look something like where you see the fog gradually getting thicker and thicker and thicker. So there's even like a ground fog that you can see right here. So this might be where you would see a swamp area, and you would not be able to change that. I mean, that's the idea. We don't want you guys to turn that off and then have any advantage.
But people can't turn up their brightness and see.
Oh, they can do that. You could definitely do that. You can always do that. There's no way to get around that.
Yeah, but if the fog gets thicker at night or something, then...
Yeah, I mean, we don't have control over gamma. I mean, in terms of someone just going on their monitor and changing that, and that's just. But we can affect what you can see in the environment on our side, on the server side.
What's the, just because we talked about this before, but a bunch of people asked, what's the likelihood of caves?
All right, so I was just talking about this with somebody. So we do have ideas on how we could do this within Unity and within the parcel building process. So real quick, I won't go too much on this because I've said it before, it's a broken record, but this has been a very challenging project in the sense that all those cool features that you see in games nowadays, global illumination, light baking, shadow baking, all these cool stuff that gives artists the ability to create some fantastic environments, we just can't do any of that. And the reason why is when you pick up an environment and rotate it, we can't pack all that information in and just save it out. It would just be way too much. So we've had to give a little on some of that cool stuff and then do everything dynamically, which is expensive. So to kind of, you know, to answer that question with a cave system, we could definitely do that. We could model in a cave system and put it into next to the mountain or on the side of a terrain and make it look pretty cool. But I have some ideas. What I want to do is actually model that in the terrain, where we would cut out the terrain and make a whole cave system that actually feels subterranean. And there are some techniques for us to do that, and so it's a possibility. I'd like to get it in at some point. Be a post-launch thing, though.
Since the hunger and the progression of seasons drastically impacts the environment, will we see patches of variable environment type, like fall in one spot and winter in another at the same time, or is it all...
It's probably going to be more of a whole... what Todd wants, this is the thing he really wants, is... let's say from the season of fall going into winter, there's that in-between state, you would start to see the hunger crystals coming out of the ground, and there would be some snow that started to build up around there. And we might have little models with patches of that going on, but when it flips over to winter, everything's going to kind of flip over. So you won't have half the environment that's not, and then the rest of the environment that is. Is there any more questions? Last one. That's it?
I think since we've got them here, that's about it. Oh, will you add something to the edge of the map soon?
Oh, yeah, edge of the map.
Instead of just...
I know. Yeah, that's another thing that we're testing, which is we can, where we would take what we call like a beach parcel and flip and just tile those all around the whole world, and then it just stitches up. And then we would have like a world water that goes across everything. And we would do that as well. So that's something we want to do. It's just a matter of time. We'll get to it. Bear with us. Anyways, I guess that's it.
Yep, you're good.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was kind of a quick one. It was a quickie. And just to kind of show off some of the new stuff that's coming y'all's way. All right.
Sweet. Bye, John.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Today we are showing, or we're just reading
We're reading words.
John showed everything that was going to be shown, which is pretty cool stuff. For us, it's all just a bunch of... You saw all those little settings he has? There was like 300 or 400, maybe even more settings in there.
He has a lot of tools.
Yes. So he has a lot of tools now. It's looking cool. I can't wait to see it in game. Okay, let's start with the patch notes.
Let's do it.
We got 5 or 6 pages. We're going to go for the fun ones.
Where we starting?
You want to start with the 10th?
Do we have like anything like a paper towel or something? Because I literally am in water here.
Where did all the water come from?
I don't know.
I don't know, John. Give me a second.
What was O'Neal doing?
And he's just like,
John had a water bottle. He had a water bottle.
you just like,
There you go.
in the hole. Okay, there. Thank you.
Yeah, O'Neal's a little messy. All right. We ready?
Yes. Let's do it.
Okay. Campaigns. Fix the issue of the hippos continually blinking while build was being fixed. Yeah, that was kind of annoying. Bunch of even more hippo fixes. Move the armor cart away from the gate ladder in the fort. I'm looking for some good ones to talk about.
Earlier ones here.
Ooh, harvestable points of interest now show up on the player map. Yeah, it's important to tell everyone where to go. When a player accepts a trade with a full inventory or not enough inventory space to accommodate the item just disappears.
Yeah. That's
Where does that item disappear to?
To the ether, perhaps?
Does it get sent into space? That probably shouldn't happen. Druid orbs, stopping soft target powers. Druid orbs count as projectiles. Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
We did that, if you remember long ago, that's how Blight works. It turns the projectiles from the healing projectile into a nuking projectile. Some good tech there. Let's talk about Druid Nature's Avatar, because this was a change that you've kind of been futzing with for a long time. Because originally, I think Nature's Avatar was like an 80% damage buff.
Yeah, it was 75% damage buff. So yeah, so the changes to Nature's Avatar, basically, let's see. What's the patch note say? Nature's Avatar now adds 30% critical hit chance and 50% critical hit damage and 25% damage bonus and 435 attack power. All numbers I've just threw some darts on the board.
Those are some big numbers.
No. So yeah, Nature's Avatar used to give a 75% damage bonus, and since then we have caps for things because we actually don't want you to be able to get a 75% damage bonus, but we still want Nature's Avatar to give a 70% total damage output bonus. So that's basically what that change does.
Right, because the whole intention, if I remember way back in the Ether days, the Druid is essentially doing nothing except basically sacrificing all of their movement and everything just to channel into somebody and make them more powerful.
Right. So it's a fairly balanced. It's a good thing to do. So we didn't want to sacrifice that.
It's kind of like the Wonder Twins.
Yes.
When they do Wonder Twins activate, and one of them forms the bucket, and the other one's like the actual water or the lava that gets dumped on the. Except that
He can only form water.
Yeah. And he totally got screwed with that power, by the way. The whole water thing, yeah, water or ice. Hey, it's like water only. It's hard. I don't know. Yeah, it's like an ice dagger. Can somebody stick me?
Druids are one of the most mobile classes. Actually, that would be Wood Elves. Wait, is it Wood Elves that got Misty Step? You'll see. That's in 5.3. Okay. Enabled buffs to be displayed in nameplates. Yeah, Billy did some cleanup work there because we wanted to reduce the clutter on the nameplate of enemy units. So they only show debuffs now, and buffs will show obviously on your right screen and in the group area. And I think actually when you actually have, if I were to target Jack over there, in the free world I'd see debuffs, but his nameplate that shows up next to mine will show the buffs that are on him. So you can see what build or whatever he's running as well. Disciplines. Ooh. That looks like a bug. Runecaster Fortification no longer forces group members or you into combat.
Yes. Yeah, there was a couple of those that came through within that you'll see.
There's a magic checkbox called puts target in combat.
Yes. Yes, there is.
That we mistakenly check from here.
Well, it's checked by default. So if we don't uncheck it, then guess what? You're going into combat. And so.
Festering Wounds will now expose the enemy target when they cast a heal like intended rather than the enemy's heal target. This was easy to miss since if you heal yourself, you're the heal target, so it looked like it was working.
And that's me dev-splaining that, that this was the second time I fixed this, because I missed that one the second time. So it works now.
Okay, jump to August 11th.
Up to the 11th from the 10th.
Yep, this is patch 5.2.3. Added some name resources to the tyranny map, so copper and iron and things like that, instead of just knotwood. Or I believe John renamed the knotwood to shitwood in his update because he arbitrarily likes to rename things.
Like actually for reals?
No, he didn't. But
okay.
That's what he was referring to it as. Fix the water collision in the beachhead parcels. Yes, you could walk on water.
Yes. Yes, you could.
Moving the thrones up slightly so hopefully they stop embedding in the floor. Seems reasonable.
Spoiler, they didn't.
Dubers,
as you'll note in the future patch note.
Dubers should now always correctly have their glow indicating what quality they are. Yeah, it's kind of a thing. We built that tech and sometimes people touch things and they break. Fixed, so trade session is closed completely when you go back to mouse mode. That means if you press Alt during a trade session, the trade will cancel and the items should be returned to you. So no more ether by this patch. Okay, so we did do a change to death in 5.2.3. Death and decay. Why don't you talk about that for a second?
Sure. So let's see. We have on death immediate decay has been temporarily deactivated using the retrieve body option causes your equivalent to decay by 10%. So I don't know if this was this one. So this was actually putting a stopgap into something we found, which is actually addressed in the next patch.
Was it because
so this was basically
we were double dipping on death, if I remember correctly?
Right. Yeah. There were a couple things going on. So this is the start of addressing some problems with death and decay, which we'll see in future patch notes.
And that was kind of a legacy from the original death mechanic, which was you had an option of running back to your body from the temple as a crow, or B, you could just use the magic tow truck, as we called it, to summon the body.
Right.
We got rid of the running back to the body, but we left the decay in there.
Right.
So this was us kind of cleaning that up and getting rid of the decay when you die and then decay when you tow truck.
Right. So no more double dipping.
Yep.
It's all magic tow truck all the time.
So 523 was a fairly small patch. The next week, 524, which is August 17th, what did we do? The respawn on the POIs now works. Okay, yeah, that was right. The chests were breaking.
Yep.
Removed the import-export on banks, added banks to the forts and keeps, so the bank tech came online. Now, I do believe at this point they were still considered everything's a global bank, rather than the idea that they will eventually be local banks. Destruction with basic attacks was now working. Toast messages should now appear below the tug of war UI instead of the center of the screen. Annoying. Fort hippos have been adjusted to free up room around the ladders. Improve the reliability of the fort gate teleporters. Okay. Again, cleaning up the UI happened in this update. Fixed the gear loss. Oh no, could you wiggle the mouse because we lost our questions?
There's a couple.
Wiggle the mouse.
Wiggle mouse. That's
There you go. Thank you.
put that in the wiggle direction.
Players should now be able to remap the middle mouse button. Yeah, I always tend to use my middle mouse button for games. Some deeds were not transferred to the Spirit Bank to the inventory. Those deeds have been fixed and are able to be imported correctly. There is a setting checkbox that we need to check on deeds to make them work like that. Group channels now reconnect automatically after losing connection. Yes. The chat just shutting off is no bueno. Skill tree UI should now display the correct amount of time when training a skill. Ranger disengage now includes a route.
Yeah, so a couple changes.
I can't remember why it was ever taken off.
It never had it. It never had a root on it. It was.
I swear in the original design doc for that we had.
Well, I never saw it. If it was before my time, there might have been, but there actually. So yeah, so I added a root to disengage and a knockdown to jab, which I think is that in this one or is that in the next one?
This is the 5.3 or 5.2.4 patch notes.
So anyway, yes, quality of life stuff for the ranger.
Gaea's Wail had its description updated. Spark bounces around to multiple enemies.
Right. It always did that. It was just we just updated the tooltip, so it said that it.
Yeah, that was my bad not putting it in the tooltip. Gaea's Wail, which is the bear, was modeled after Charge Shot for the ranger, which became a Ricochet Shot when the left clicks became charge shots. Because originally the ranger's shots were instant shots. They weren't charged. So we changed them to charge up for power for how much damage you want to deal. Now, Ricochet Shot, which will hit to 3 targets, has a hidden aspect to it where if it hits 3 targets, you get a buff called Hot Shot. And Hot Shot, I think, gives you a crit buff for the next 10 seconds or whatever. Anyways, Gaea's Wail was modeled after that, such that if you hit 3 targets with the bear, if the bear bounces twice after the initial application, you get a buff. I can't even remember what it's called at this point. That affects your left click and something else.
No, that is not why the bear is broken. Somebody asks.
Oh. Anyways,
Unrelated.
Unrelated. Just giving you guys the history of Hot Shot and the Gaea's Wail. Health meters on targeted players should now show the proper color. I think that was just broken in the update to try and clean that thing up. More 524. Fix for sunken thrones in forts and keeps. Didn't we see a...
That's what I was saying. Spoiler alert.
Fix for walls not being able to be destroyed by player powers. Adjusted hippos so they aren't blocking teleport ladders in forts. A bunch of stuff about basically cleaning up forts with banners and the chests and those guys. Fixed an issue causing placeable buildings to switch into ghost mode when getting into interact range. I never saw that one, but I'd like
creepy.
to.
Ghosts.
Harvesting another look at interaction should now work properly again after death. Seems important. Cleaned up the way the altar does its pulse to be more efficient and reliable. You should no longer be able to leave the area of the altar as a crow. Yes, that is a thing. When logging out and back in as a crow, you should no longer be able to explore the map freely. Huh. Move faction toast away from dead center of the screen for better visibility. Updated the location of the cursor mode to help text when in the cursor mode. Training UI should now display the proper amount of training time. So someone's been touching the skill stuff, even though we're in the middle of a substantial UI update for the skill system, as you saw from last week's live stream in the 5.3 branch. Showing curved health bars for players and NPCs. Colored the bars to match the nameplate colors of the group-friendly enemy. Yep, lots of little things. Disabled the video panel from the lobby until we get updated content. All videos are out of date. Yes, the how-to-play videos. Time has moved on, and we have made many tweaks, and now Disciplines make a lot of those videos way out of date. And Gibson's over there grimacing because he's made those videos 2 and 3 times now. And
he gets to make them some more.
He gets to make some more.
Okay.
Made the Who command chat room aware so it report the users in the current room. Removed artificing from group crest backing. I guess it was looking bad. Re-enabled the map toggle in a docked UI. That thing times out awfully quick. We have to wiggle the mouse constantly to keep you guys so we can see chat.
Just go in and adjust the sleep timer.
Yes, we're definitely not remaking the videos until after 5.3. In fact, probably at this point we'll wait until you'll get the cleric in 5.3, and we want the assassin, the frostweaver in there, and then we can make the videos, because at that point we'll have done our first pass on all of the classes, and we'll probably be ready to loop back around in for another pass. Combat and power. So we're still in 5.2.4. Supercharged regeneration will no longer trigger from self-inflicted damage, such as falling.
This is another thing that there were probably several of these that I fixed over the course of the next couple weeks.
Added a knockdown to Ranger Jab. Okay. Jab was always really good. I think it's a guaranteed crit, isn't it?
It is.
And it's a knockdown?
It is. Both.
Sounds like the Ranger melee tray is pretty good. Updated the tooltip for Gaia's Wail to better reflect how the power works. Friar passive should no longer put the player in combat mode. Again, combat mode. Okay, now we're up to August 30th with patch 5.2.5. Okay, so beachheads. Enemy factions should not be able to enter your beachhead. And if they do, they are going to feel the pain. I believe we now will do significant damage to you after a brief warning period of you should not be here. We do not want you in here. No, we want all of the classes in game before redoing the video, Schoolster. A faction that owns the keep can build up the hippos in and around that keep. All right. Building materials can be found throughout the chests on the map. Most can be found around catapults. That seems like a weird patch note. I would think that most of them would be found at the POIs in the center of the map, and there are no catapults there. Enemy factions can contest the keep and start a siege by planting a Banewood Plague Tree. There are 3 Banewood Plague Trees on the map, 1 next to each beachhead. Once the Banewood Tree has been planted, there's a 5-minute period where both teams can prepare for battle. So basically, this is just going through all the rules of a siege. And for many of you who played Siege Perilous with us,
very, very familiar.
They may seem very familiar, except Siege Perilous never had the pre-battle phases, the cleanup phases. We just basically throw you into a battle and then wipe the map.
Right. This is
right.
Sort of the formal introduction of the actual rules.
Right. And these times are in here just at this short value so we can actually get one done. And because we want to test these things multiple times before we kind of seal off the, oh, hey, now there's an hour timer on here or 30-minute timer.
Make sure the end-to-end works.
Right. And just like Siege Perilous, attackers can only win one way. They have to destroy the Tree of Life, and if they do so, they get control of the keep. The defender can either wait out the storm, essentially just outlasting the attack, or they can destroy all the Banewood trees if you have a significant defensive force that is stronger than the attacking force.
You can afford to leave the defenders go on the offense.
When the siege ends, the hippos will either reset back to full health. Hopefully the timer should be ticking down in the current version. There was a bunch of bug fixes for 5.2.6 that didn't make it out last week, I believe. So we are under efforts to get them out to you as soon as possible. When the siege ends, the hippos either reset or go back up to full health. If the hippo is not built to the final stage, it resets to the base hippo. If a hippo's shield is completely gone, then the hippo resets as the base hippo, and that wall needs to be rebuilt. When the siege ends, the catapults disappear from all the platforms. If the defenders win, there's a 10-minute cooldown before players can initiate a siege again. If the attackers win, there is no cooldown. So again, these are just testing values. I would expect them to be hours and maybe even upwards of a day in many cases. Respawn times for the POI resources has been set to a quicker spawn time, 15 to 45 seconds for testing purposes only. Obviously, we would never have a 15 to 45 second. However, what the great thing was about this time is it showed that our respawn stuff had some broken issues with it.
Right.
So those got cleaned up. So hooray.
Hooray.
Okay. Yes, Noble Starter, there will be a patch as soon as 5.2.7 is ready to go. Mark, if you could please jiggle that mouse constantly, or maybe we'll just have Jack do it.
Once every 5 minutes.
He's just constantly,
Yeah, just like...
just move the mouse. Okay. Enemy players will now be burned upon entering an enemy beachhead. As I said before, we don't want you in there.
Burn them.
Why did you do that in the... That was the voice from Inspector Gadget, the Dr. Claw.
Oh, maybe it was. I don't know. I wasn't a big Inspector Gadget fan.
I instantly recognized that voice, though. All banners and keeps and forts should now be visible. Added 2 more personal chests to keeps and updated their placement. Fixed hippos that were not displaying the timber icon. Okay, that was a weird one. Siege cycle now resets when the quiet time elapses. POI chests are now export only, yes. We don't want... Now that we have secure trade, we shouldn't really need to use...
Chests as a way to transfer things between people?
That was just kind of a interim thing. So we don't want people putting things and filling these chests up
With surprises.
with just random crap, because that prevents the respawn stuff from working properly. Added temporary test chest to Banewood trees and siege area. You're going to see a lot of this, which is we just kind of want as much testing on the sieges as possible. So we did kind of do some of the old Siege Perilous stuff with armor racks and things like that. I think those will be going into 5.2.7 or 5.2.8. But this was the prelude to that. Walls will now be destroyed during the cleanup phase if they have no barrier remaining. If they have some barrier remaining, they will be healed to full barrier. Wall cleanup after a siege is again based on health being below 50%, but will now correctly heal the barrier too and not just the hit points.
Right. Just more cleanup and making sure things...
Yep. We want to shelve all of the siege stuff and get it all working so we can work on other things. Several adjustments have been made to player movement, included some fixing to jumping. You're going to see a lot of jumping fixes in the next couple patches. Less getting stuck on rocks. Things like that. Fixed a bug where power data could be returned to the pool multiple times, thus putting multiple references to the same object onto the pool, which could then be used by different powers for strange results.
Like, for example...
For example, okay, so what we do... Let's just explain what pooling
Yeah,
is.
so creating new objects is expensive, right? So we and a lot of people basically use a technique called object pooling. And so what that does basically, create an object, let's say, oh, here's an object, bam, I make this object. When I'm done with it, rather than destroying it, I just kind of put it in a box over here. Let's say this object is a game effect. And so I've created a new game effect, done with the game effect, and so I'm going to put it in this box over here. What I'm supposed to do, clean it up, make sure it's all
Clean
and good. And then Blair's like, I need a game effect, and he reaches in the box. If there's nothing in the box, it's okay for him to make a new game effect. But if there is a game effect,
A clean one,
he'll grab it and take it. So what was happening, I believe, was basically I'm like, Blair's like, I need a game effect, and so he grabs that one, and then I'm like, I need a game effect, and then I grab
take it away
Blair's,
from mine.
and I'm like, you know what I'm gonna put on this game effect? Druid Essence Burn. And so what happens is Blair gets Druid Essence Burn.
Because it's still mine.
Because it's still his.
So
we fixed that.
Yes, there is, again, there's nothing more expensive than creating new objects or destroying objects. So we prefer to clean them off and reuse them because it's faster. So,
better.
Yes, and if you have things doing bad things when they're cleaning or they're creating multiples, then sometimes the game gets confused. So it's called object pooling. You can probably, there's better wiki articles or something,
I mean,
if you're really interested in it.
It's a pretty common thing to do.
But we definitely had cases where people were randomly getting Druid Essence Burn when
Or
they
anything.
did something.
Like you could get anything really. It could be any game effect. Essence Burn just happens to be when people notice.
But it's hilarious. I think me as like a knight getting Essence Burn because you're burning.
Like I'm dying and I don't know why. There's nothing I can do.
There's nothing you can do.
There's
It's
nothing
hilarious.
you can do. You just die.
You guys have 5 minutes, just so you know.
Okay. We're I think we only have a page and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. Personal bank windows should no longer be off screen. Players can now clear the WASD key bindings. Added compass rows to the EK and campaign maps to show directions in the HUD indicator. Let's see. Ooh, Knight. Reduce the cost and damage of the onslaught and shield swipe combos. Too expensive?
Yeah. Well. Oh, that was a the animations had been made more quick since sometime. And so
Okay.
they were just too.
Sorry, I'm not doing my job wiggling the mouse.
Pistol Master Rapid Fire will now cause damage in all situations. I guess it wasn't.
There was a it was a weird race condition you could where it would not. So.
When the caster of a field is removed from the world, it should now remove the field as well. So does that mean when a confessor dies, it will remove their burning field?
It should do this.
Okay. Fix the essence burn triggering on other players. That was the one I was. Yeah, burrowing is considered a teleport, and it is also on the list with jumping. Basically, there's a whole list of movement stuff that one of our engineers is working on. Okay, so now we're up to more to 5.2.5 still. Let's just go to 5.2.6 because this was just some campaign siege fixes. 5.2.5. Sure. That added a new hunger shard that has no weapon additive stats for feeding banewood trees. We probably just want to change the name on that so people don't get confused. Updated the spawn rates of hunger shards and POI chests. Adjusted the size of the banewood sapling. Yeah, it was either really big or really small depending on how you were looking at it.
Like the tiny one.
Don't look at that. Was it Happy Fun Box? Don't look at it. Fixing backwards ramp pieces in the beachhead. Fix the gatehouse construction stages to line up correctly on the grid. Remove the camera zoom while harvesting. Yeah, that's, which doesn't even really matter because harvesting is seeing a substantial revamp as we speak in 5.3. No. But I won't go into that now. Client should properly be locked down while drinking the poison to change archetype so that they can't move around or dodge, causing problems with the UI. When a respawning content chest spawns nothing, it should auto restart the respawn timer. That was a funny bug. So basically, if a chest rolled nothing on loot, it would never spawn again. Because the respawn was looking for something being, the last object being removed from the chest. So if nothing was removed from the chest because it spawned nothing. Yeah. So basically all chests would move towards this state of just keep rolling until you hit nothing and then I will never spawn again. So
like, I'm done.
So basically you'd have like 15 chests, then 14 chests, then 10 chests, then 9 chests. So over time they would all eventually end up in a state where they were respawning nothing. Those are some fun bugs to fix. Let's see. Balance pass is still in the works for hippos. Current feeder requirements. Yeah, we've obviously they're in a testing phase, which is why it's two boulders to make a wall now. That will not be the case in the future. After looting a boar, the skinning harvestable body sinks into the ground. Oh, these are known issues. I was gonna say these don't seem like fixes.
All right.
So good. Any? Well, we have 3 minutes. Let's questions.
What's the likelihood that 5.3 will break the game?
What? A giant patch breaking the game? Never.
Yeah, there's a good likelihood that lots of little weird things that we didn't, that were at the edges of the spider web that we didn't see got broken.
Yeah, I mean, because basically, you know, kind of like a whole new way of having classes instead of archetypes and little things like that.
Yeah, actually, it's been so long since we did that. We just kind of forget about the differences between what you guys are playing and what we have in 5.3.
Right. You're like, this is not even close to what I'm looking at right now.
Right? You're pressing buttons that are supposed to be doing things, and you're like, oh, hey, this doesn't work over here. So it will be a lot of substantial changes. Will Druid targeted heals when switching back from death to life tray work in 5.2.7? We just started even looking at that bug folded rows.
Yeah, if you have any more information about that, let us know. Because we're trying to repro it
already.
Yeah,
What's
unfortunately
I have a ticket in for it.
Yeah,
I was trying to repro it this morning, actually, just before this.
And unfortunately, those are the kinds of things that we hate to fix in many cases, because the entire way you swap trays is changed in 5.3. Right. So that means that we'll fix it for live, and then we'll pave over that tech because we have a whole new series of tech coming down the pipe. But if it's preventing you guys from playing, then we have to fix it. Why continue down the 5.2 branch when so many things are different in 5.3? Good question. And that's how development works. So you always have something new and big coming on the horizon, because when you guys are playing 5.3, when we push that out, 5.4 is going to be coming, and there's going to be huge changes every time we do major milestones like that. And we can't just shut down live, because you guys are doing a lot of work that's invaluable to us in finding a lot of bugs and us getting a lot of balance changes in for how we want to do things.
Yeah, and that's not to say that the things that are happening in 5.2 aren't going to affect 5.3, right? All the powers fixes that we're doing in 5.2 are going to be in 5.3 as well, right? So it's like, even, you know, it's basically there's development happening in both branches. That's just the way things roll.
Gaea's Wail at some point stopped working correctly in terms of its hit mechanics. It can now miss at 5 meters. Has this been solved or identified?
Well, so
that's a projectile.
Yeah, it's a projectile. So I mean, there's some projectile issues that have been fixed, and I believe possibly they're even looking at, because I know there was an exception being thrown. For example, I just found people are looking at it. It is known.
Top men? Thank you, Gibson.
Top men on it. Gibson's on it.
Did you relocate your office to the Amazons? I don't know what that means.
It's probably what's behind us.
Yeah, you guys have a waterfall behind you.
We don't see what you see.
Oh yeah, so we don't have our picture of our face. We just have the do you drink beer when you merge? Crack and smack, and sometimes you wonder. But generally, no. That comes after it, and things are all working. And it looks like Crowfall game, which I'm guessing is Pan, is cutting us off.
I was just about to say, start to wrap it up, guys.
Like, thank you for joining. Wrap it up. Yeah, she's not even. Wrap it up, B. So thank you for coming out. We always enjoy giving you a little insight into why we made some of these changes, and some history behind them, because actually getting to see the development is the fun part, or at least I hope it's the fun part for some of you guys, which is just seeing things progress over time from Gray Box World to Combat to Hunger Dome to Siege Perilous to Campaign World to the next thing, and all of the little tweaks we make along the way. So thanks for showing up, and we will see you again soon.
See you next time.